And so she wrote a book, we need to reconsider who this man was. These are people that are honest and fair. And then there's people that are just completely hoodwinked. They really don't know. And those are the people that we should be communicating to, letting them know who we are, letting them know we're victims of identity theft. Because they understand that. So, a few things about the Prophet that really bothers them. And this is something wonderful that the great English convert to Islam, Muhammed William Pickthall, amazing man. You know, he was a best-selling author in England. When he converted to Islam, his book sales bottomed out. It's very interesting. The Prophet ﷺ said, a man came to him and he said, "Wallahi inni uhibbuka." He said, "A'idda lil-faqri tijfafan." Like, then get ready for poverty. He said, "I love you." He said it 3 times. And the Prophet said, get ready. He said, prepare for poverty, a tijfaf. Tijfaf is what the Arabs put on the horse to protect it from the spears. They called a barding or a coupler. Barding, it's called, on the horse. So he said, prepare. In other words, tribulation is going to come to you because that's the nature of it. So you either get it in this world or the next world, but tribulation is coming. It's either in this world or it's in the next world. It's better in this world. Iblis, you know, the people that sign up for his program, he has a great 401k plan. It's all, no, seriously. There's people that sign, you know, I asked my father, do you think they sign on the dotted line? He said, no, it's a long series of negotiations, right? But there's people that sign up with Iblis. Seriously, there are people that sign. There was a documentary done where they put an ad in the paper for people that wanted to sell their soul to the devil. There's a documentary, a full documentary. And they got people that came and they literally signed, and they went through, they took them to these satanic rituals to sell their soul, and they were totally ready. And one of them just said, you know, I've been trying to break into, you want to be a rock star. And he said, I've been trying to, I'm 35, my time's almost ending, you know, I'm willing to sell my soul. So don't think people won't sell their soul. But Iblis, his afterlife plan is terrible. So our deen is a deen. There are wealthy Muslims, but I'll tell you, one of the things that I've noted in knowing a lot of wealthy Muslims, they have great tribulation. People of wealth have great tribulation. You know, this kind of Marxist view that, oh, their lives are all cushy. It's like rulers. People think rulers, it's all perks. Rulers, they don't sleep. Gaddafi never slept in the same place twice. Every night he's worried about a coup. You know, they take pills to get up. They take pills to go to sleep. These are real headaches. I mean, I run a small college. This is a very small college. I run a small college. It's problems all the time. There's problems. The teacher has problems. Students have problems. Staff has problems. Budgets problems. It's problems. But subhanAllah, to run a whole country, wow. That's not something that you should wish for. And that's why the Prophet said, "La na'tihi man talabahu." We don't give governance to anybody who wants it. Why? Because it means he doesn't understand what it is. That's why. وَلَا نُعْطِيهِ مَنْ حَرَصَ عَلَيْهِ. And we don't give it to one who covets it once he gets it. This is the hikmah of the Prophet. Now, just a few things about our Prophet. First of all, there is no Prophet that did what our Prophet did. None of them. They're all great. And the Prophet said, not for us not to, even though he's mufaddal, but he told us, don't go to the Jews, our Prophet's better than your Prophet. Moses was a great prophet, one of the greatest. The 5 major prophets. But none of them. Moses never led a state. People see the Prophet in Mecca and they say, Muhammad Pickthall says, the sentimentalist. You know, somebody who's sentimental, shallow feelings. He says, oh, he was like Jesus in Mecca. But then in Medina, he changes. His personality changed. He didn't change. Nothing changed about him. He's the same prophet. He's the same caring, gentle human being. But now he's the head of a state. It's a different set of circumstances. He has different considerations. Heads of state have to assassinate. This is part of being a head of state. You don't think the Americans don't assassinate? There's no country that is in power that doesn't use assassination. This is a head of state. He ran courts. He led armies. He was a general. And he wasn't like today's generals that are in Nevada with Apple computers or whatever they use, dictating what the drone strike should do. No, he was there on the battlefield, leading the battle. Kana ashja' an-nas. He was the bravest of men, sallallahu alayhi wasallam. In the Sahih Hadith, there was a massive boom in Medina, and the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the Sahaba went out immediately after hearing this because they thought there was some attack on the city. And the Prophet was coming back with the horse of Abu Talha. And they said he was ariyun. In other words, it was an unsaddled. He was riding an unsaddled horse because he didn't have time to put on the saddle. And anybody who's ridden horses bareback knows how difficult it is. And he was on his way back with his sword around his neck. And he said, "La tara'u, la tara'u, don't be afraid, don't be afraid." And then he said to Abu Talha, because he took his horse. Horse is faster than camel. He took his horse and he said, "Innahu la bahra." This is an ocean, this horse. There's a good horse. But that was his bravery. He was the first out. This is our Prophet ﷺ. He did everything. He did everything. He wrote a constitution. So he was a constitutional jurist. He put down the laws of inheritance. He put down the civil and penal code of a nation that did not have a civic or penal code before that. He united tribes that anybody who knew the Arabs knew the impossibility of uniting these tribes, and yet he brought them together. He honored the Bedouin, these rough, tough people. All of these things. He treated women better than anybody. He said, "Khairukum khairukum li nisaikum wa ana khairukum lin nisa." The best of you are the best to your women folk, and I'm the best of you to women folk. This is our Prophet ﷺ. Just amazing. So I want to say to you, one of the great peoples of and all the Muslims have greatness. There's no culture that doesn't have, Islam did not make something great about them. You can look in the past. I'm only in the last, 5 or 6 years, I really got attracted to India and the Indian culture, Muslim culture of India, and read the history and studied it and was just so amazed at the Indian culture. It's just an incredible culture of diversity, of intelligence, the people that gave the world mathematics, the people that gave so many gifts to our civilization. And one of the tragedies of Islam, of the Muslims today, is they don't recognize even the pre-Islamic civilizations. Anybody who reads early Muslim literature, and I'm talking about up to about 600-700 years ago, you'll marvel at the number of Hindu sages that are quoted by Muslims. Muslims had no problem taking wisdom. Wherever it was, they took it. Innis begzarad. Innis begzarad. It's one of the wisdoms from a pre-Islamic Persian king who asked a wise man of Persia, "I want you to give me a word that when I'm at the heights of the dunya, it will remind me, and when I'm at the bottom, I want the same thing." So he went and spent time, and then he came back with a ring, and on it said, "Innis begzarad." This too shall pass. So when you're at the heights, just remember, this too shall pass. When you're at the bottom, this too shall pass. This is dunya. Do dinki dunya hai. It's 2 days. It's just 2 days. One day you're up, the next day you're down. It's a half an inch of water and you think you're going to drown, as John Pine said. So look at this culture. One of the most beautiful cultures, and I fell in love with it 40 years ago, because the first Muslim village, Muslim country I went to was Morocco. And I fell in love with the culture. I fell in love with the people. I spent 1 month with Amazigh people up in the Atlas Mountains, Sidi Saleh. Just such beautiful people. And it's all from the Prophet ﷺ. But they every year in August, they would go, they're originally Bedouin. So they would go up to this valley and they would put tents up. They had 2 tents, one for Khatam al-Quran and the other for Dalail al-Khirat. And they kept it going 24/7 with a munawaba. And then they would only break to eat. And so we went up, there was a group of Muslims from England and the US, and I was with them. And one of the most powerful lessons that I ever got in my life was from these people. So there were these 2 women with us in the group, and we had 2 cars. And so they made an amir of each car. And so these 2 women were at loggerheads the whole time. They were really just didn't get, you have this problem with people. You just don't get along with people sometimes. And so they actually got into a fight. And so the Amir who was with us, he said, no, let them, they need to get this out of their system. That's what he said. So they're letting these 2 women fight. One of these Amazigh men saw this happening. He ran and he broke it up. He said, la, 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 Allahumma salli ala nabi. And he pulled them apart. And then they went and told Sidi Saleh. So he got all of us together and he gave us a dars about islah that al-bayn. Don't let Muslims fight. That's from the Prophet ﷺ, because he said that is the highest thing. If you really want to know the essence of this thing, it's rectifying between people. And look at our culture. When a fight breaks out, everybody starts saying, fight, fight. And they surround it. And they watch people fight like animals. This is our culture. But this is not a prophetic culture. The prophetic culture breaks these illnesses. And that's why our Prophet, everything he did was medicinal. And that's why when you have this uswa, this example, we have to take it. And we have to practice it, and we have to preach it, and we have to teach it, and we have to remind our ummah, ourselves, our ummah, and then the world. Because the world looks at Muslims now, what do we have to offer? فَاقِدُ شَيْءٍ لَا يُعْطِي. Somebody that doesn't have anything can't give anything. But we have something, we're just holding on to it. Hudayf ibn al-Yaman said towards the latter days, the Muslims would be like a big rock in the river. It wouldn't let people drink from it, and it wouldn't drink from it. That's what he said. Like a hajar fi nahar. لا يشرب منه ولا يخلي الناس يشرب منه. It won't drink from it, and they won't let others drink. So this is the Shifa of Qadi Iyad. This was one of the most important books in the history of Islam. It was written by a great Andalusian, North African, Moroccan scholar, Qadi Iyad. They said, لولا المصطفى لولا شفاء ما عرف المصطفى. If it wasn't for the Shifa, you wouldn't have known the Prophet ﷺ. I want you to just think about this. This is a handwritten, this is a facsimile, but it's handwritten, gold ink embroidery. Anytime the Prophet's name is mentioned, gold ink, gold ink, gold ink. There were so many copies when I first went to shop for handwritten manuscripts in Morocco. There were so many copies of this because so many Moroccans, they used to carry this book. They would read this book with the Quran. In their kashkul, they would have this kashkul and they would carry this, Dalail Khairat and the Quran. When anybody got sick, they read this book with Niyatul Shifa. This is an amazing book. It's a beautiful book. It's one of the most beautiful things that anybody's ever written. And it will tell you who your prophet is. When you read this book, if you're not in love right now, you will fall in love with this man, because everything about this man is beautiful. Everything about this man is amazing. There's nobody like him in the history of our species. And people can't see it because they're blinded. Many Muslims are blinded. They can't see who he is. But just to give you a little example of who he was, there's so many things that we could say, but this is a beautiful testimony, and I can't do a better job than just to let you know. But this was written by one of our great scholars. It's a very short book. It was written in the 8th century by Shamsuddin. He was known as bin Ahmed bin Sayyid al-Nas. And he said about the Prophet ﷺ, his akhlaq, وَمِنْ أَخْلَاقِهِ صلى الله عليه وسلم سُئِلَتْ عائشة رضي الله عنها عن أخلاقه فقالت كان خلق القرآن. His character was the Quran. He would get angry for the Quran, in other words, the things that the Quran warned us about, and he would be pleased with the Quran. He would never take vengeance for his own self, nor would he get angry for his own self. He never got angry for himself. Only if the sanctities of Allah were in any way sacrilege. That's the only time he would get upset. He got upset for Allah, but he would never, لَمْ يَقُمْ لِغَضَبِهِ أَحَدٍ. He would never allow that, the ghadab of anybody to rile him. كَانَ أَشْجَعَ النَّاسِ وَأَسْخَاهُمْ. He was the bravest of men. He was the most generous of men. He was the most giving of men. They said if you did not have la in the kalima, he never would have used the word. لولا لا في الشهادة لما قال لا قط. He always said na'am. One time somebody asked him for a Bedouin kept asking, and he said, I'll take a loan. And Omar said, ما كلفك الله بهذا. And the Prophet looked at Omar, and he's teaching Omar because Omar has a very high maqam. And he frowned at Omar. He looked at Omar and he let him know that no. And then one of the Ansar said, أنفق يا رسول الله ولا تخافوا. Just give out and don't be worried. And he smiled and he said, هكذا أمرت. Like this I was commanded. So he never said no to anybody.